Guys, I'm coming at you today with a couple scary stories. This is going to be my new little tidbit. Instead of the scary stories, I did a blanket fort, so this time I'm doing campfire scary stories. And today's edition, I'm in the spider suit once again, so it's going to be a little different. Let's go for it. So I have a few different stories. Our first one is going to be, I got this from parade.com. It's about the strange disappearance of D.B. Cooper. And if y'all don't remember this, because I kind of remember part of the story, but not, it's been so long ago that I don't remember exactly what happened. But I did read through this because sometimes I fumble over my words, so I do have to read through it just to make sure there's nothing crazy in there or there's no typos or anything like that. But anyways, I found the story to be very odd. It seems kind of evident what happened, but also there's like a few missing pieces. So it does make it very strange. So that's our first story. Our second one is, our second story is about the Watcher House. And then our very last one is the story on Indrid Cold. And if you guys remember on my last scary story, let me get myself comfortable. Hold on. Because I gotta get it together. I'm just gonna apparently have to be leaning down like this. Not the most comfortable of positions, but anyways. Alright, so let's get started with our first story. Oh no, my s'more. Oh, I wish this was real. Oh, also we have Flashes on the couch, that's his butt. And then here's Gio, he's sleeping soundly. So they're having a good night's sleep. What's going on? They had a very busy day, so I think they're just worn out. So sweet. They're not bloody. That one, because he'll poot on you. Okay, anyways. Okay, so here's our first story. The story of the disappearance of D.B. Cooper. It even came with a little hot dog. Okay, so our first story is about D.B. Cooper. I'm so scared I'm going to catch something on fire. Let me adjust myself one more time. I couldn't quite sit up straight because it's cutting off the top. This is not, it's not the best of angles, but I'm trying to work with what I got here.
And every time I speak back, it cuts off the top of my head, which I know you guys probably don't care about the top of my head, but you know, it is what it is. I'm trying to make this efficient. We're just going to roll with it, okay?
Thank you guys again for hanging out with me, but let's jump into the story. On Wednesday, November 24th of 1971, a man identified as Daniel Cooper bought a $20 one-way ticket on Northwest Airlines on Flight 305 from Portland, Oregon to Seattle, Washington. Cooper was described as being in his mid-40s, wearing a business suit, an overcoat, brown shoes, a white shirt, and a black tie. He also carried a briefcase and a brown paper bag. Before the flight took off, he ordered a bourbon and soda from a flight attendant. After the plane was airborne, Cooper handed the flight attendant a note. At first, she just put it in her pocket without looking at it, but then Cooper told her, "Miss, you better look at that note. I have a bomb." Cooper then told her the bomb was in the briefcase and asked her to sit next to him. Mistake number one, lady. Do not. Then again, probably should. I don't know. He opened the briefcase to reveal red-colored sticks surrounded by an array of wires. Bad news, man. Cooper then told the flight attendant to write down everything he was saying and then take it to the captain. The note said, "I want $200,000 by 5 p.m. in cash exclusively and $20 bills in a knapsack. I want 2 back parachutes and 2 front parachutes. When we land, I want a fuel truck ready to refuel. No funny stuff or I'll do the job." FBI agents assembled the ransom money from several Seattle area banks, and Seattle police obtained the parachutes from a local skydiving school. What in the world? When Cooper claimed his demands were met, he allowed all passengers and some of the crew to exit the airplane. Cooper told the remaining crew to refuel the plane and chart a course to Mexico City while staying below 10,000 feet. Cooper put on a pair of dark wraparound sunglasses, which would make it into the official sketch and become famous with anyone investigating the case. A little after 8 p.m., and somewhere in between Seattle and Reno, Nevada, Cooper jumped out the rear door of the plane with 2 parachutes and the money. He was never seen again. There's more. Hold on. Oh, just a very small paragraph. Despite an expansive manhunt and over 45 years of searching, no conclusions have been made to the man's identity of his fate after he jumped. That is called one of the greatest cold cases in FBI and U.S. history. Okay, so I feel like D.B. Cooper kind of like, I feel like he just dipped. Like, you know, you had a plan, sir. He jumped off a plane, so obviously it's not like an unsolved mystery. But he did disappear. But that was kind of the plan. Like, he obviously planned it well. I don't think he really disappeared. Okay, so I feel like there's a few options here. I feel like he knew what he was doing. He planned this so very well that wherever he landed, he probably had somebody to create him a whole new identity, or I don't know, anything could have happened. But also at the same time, we don't know that his plan went through successfully. He could have like landed in the Bermuda Triangle. I don't even know if this is anywhere close. That's probably not. Never mind. I don't know. He could have landed somewhere and like, I don't know, hurt himself, and then he just hurt himself somewhere where nobody goes. I don't know. We don't know. I guess that's what makes it so creepy. That one wasn't really necessary. That one wasn't necessarily scary creepy, but you're kind of left in the dark. Alright. So this one should be a little better. I did not read over this one. Oh, sweet dream. Oh, we got stretch. Okay. Go get your stretching then. Go back to sleep. You want a s'more? Flash, you want a s'more? No? Nobody? Okay. Let's move on. The Watcher House. In June 2014, Maria and Derek Rodas and their 3 young children were getting ready to move into their new home. 657 Boulevard in Westfield, New Jersey. They claimed the 6-bedroom house was their dream home and located just a couple blocks away from Maria's childhood home in one of the top 30 safest cities in the United States. Sounds promising. We're getting somewhere. 3 days after closing the sale, before the Brodas, I'm probably saying this wrong, before the Brodas family had even begun to move in, a letter arrived in their new mailbox. The letter was addressed to the new owner in big, clunky handwriting. The typed letter read as follows: Dearest new neighbor at 657 Boulevard, allow me to welcome you to the neighborhood. How did you end up here? Did 657 Boulevard call to you with its force within? 657 Boulevard has been the subject of my family for decades now, and as it approaches its 110th birthday, I have been put in charge of watching and waiting for its second coming. That's a weird way to word that. I don't like it. My grandfather watched the house in the 1920s, and my father watched in the 1960s. It is now my time. Who am I? There are hundreds and hundreds of cars that drive by 657 Boulevard each day. Maybe I am in one. Look at all the windows you see. Look at all the windows you can see from 657 Boulevard. Maybe I am in one. Look out any of the many windows in 657 Boulevard at all the people who stroll by each day. Maybe I am one. That is unsettling, my bro. Why are you stalking people? Okay. The letter also mentions specifics about the Brodas family. You have children. I have seen them, the letter continued. So far, I think there are 3 that I have counted. Do you need to fill the house with the young blood I requested? Better for me. Was your old house too small for the growing family? Or was it greed to bring me your children? Ooh, that is so creepy, like, bro. Or ma'am. Once I know their names, I will call them and draw them to me. At the bottom of the letter, the author used a cursive font to sign, The Watcher. After receiving the letter, the Brodas family reached out to the previous family who had sold them the house, John and Andrea Woods. They stated that during the 23 years living at 657 Boulevard, they had never received a letter like that except one once a few days before they were getting ready to move out of the house. The Woods family also stated they had never felt watched in the 2 decades they had lived at that house, and in fact, rarely felt the need to lock their door at night. That's kind of unsafe. You need to lock your door anyway. Lock the door. Okay. What are you guys doing? Anywho, let's move on. While they thought the note they received was odd, they threw the note away without much concern. Still, the 2 families went to the police with the letter, and an investigation was opened. As you should. The police warned the families not to tell anyone about the letters, including their neighbors, who were now all suspects. 2 weeks later, even though their neighbors... Oh, my bad, hold on. The police warned the families not to tell anyone about the letters, including the neighbors, who were now all suspects. 2 weeks later, even though the Broaddus family still hadn't moved in, they received a second letter with even more chilling specifics about the family, including the children's birth order and nicknames. The watcher also asked, will the children sleep in the attic, or will you sleep on the second floor? Who has the bedrooms facing the street? I will know as soon as you move in. It will help me to know who is in which bedroom. Then I can plan better. I don't like the way that sounds. Several weeks later, the Broaddus family had put their plans on hold to move in. A third letter arrived. Where have they gone to? 657 Boulevard is missing you. By the end of 2014, the case had stalled. There was no digital trail, and the mental effects were taking a toll on the Broaddus family. There was no fingerprints and no way to place somebody at the scene of the crime. Only 6 months after they received the letters, they decided to sell the home. Very smart. 657 Boulevard has been sold and is currently off the market, while the watcher's identity still remains a mystery. Ugh. I don't know. I always, Okay. So, little pause on that. I always think about, like, and this happens in real life too, where you have people that will move into a house for, like, and it's cheap or something, or they get like a really good deal, and then it's haunted or something, and they just kind of like blow it off, and they're like, oh well, you know, it's really cheap and I'm saving money. However, you have a whole ghost in your house. Like, that's no. Like, okay, that's fine. I'm all about saving money too. That's fine. If it's a good deal, then fantastic. But if you have a ghost in your house, and or in this case, like, you sound like you have a crazy serial killer that is just waiting for you to move into the house so he can come on in. He obviously knows the house, so he probably knows some kind of secret passageway or something. I don't know. And then my thing is, there's some people who probably would have moved in that house despite the letters and just been like, oh, it's fine. Because you know all scary movies are like that. Let's move in anyway. No. Not okay. But anyways, I was just thinking, like, obviously he said the house was in his family, but I'm not sure why. Or wait, did he say it was in his family, or did he say, hold on, he worded it kind of weird. Let me read back what it said. Oh no, I take that back. He didn't say it was in the family. He said 657 Boulevard has been the subject of my family for decades. Ooh, I wonder if it's something like with the number 657, possibly. I'll have to get more details on that, but I'm just thinking, like, if he knows and he has told them, I'm saying it's a he, I don't know, but if the watcher is telling them, like, oh, when they move into their rooms, I'll be watching, and that way I can plan better. So he obviously knows, or will know, where the children will be. I don't know, that's so, it's creeping me out. I've been passing that. Okay, anyways. I'm just thinking, like, he sounds like he knows the house well enough to, like, be in it and be able to navigate in the dark, is what I don't like. I'm glad they didn't move into that house. Ooh, that gives me the heebie-jeebies. Okay, let's move on to the next story. This one is local lore, the Woodrow Derenberger and the Legend of Indrid Cold. Okay, so in the first scary story segment that I did, I mentioned the story, or I went over the story of the Mothman prophecies. Indrid Cold is also tied into the Mothman prophecies. I'm not really sure exactly what he is, but he sounds like he's an entity that kind of is similar to the Mothman, like he pops up when things start to go haywire. But I'm sure he seems like he's neutral. He seems like he's neither good or bad. He's just kind of there, awkwardly and kind of creepily. But if you watch the Mothman Prophecies, there's a point in the movie where the main character receives a call from Indrid Cold, and some weird stuff starts happening when he's talking to him. Like, ooh, I just spit. My bad. When he's talking to Indrid Cold, if I'm not mistaken, that's the scene where he's in the hotel, and he's like, he's in front of the mirror but not paying attention. As he's talking on the phone, he kind of moves, and his reflection moves the complete opposite direction. Like, his reflection didn't match his movement, that's what I'm trying to say, but it was super creepy. But it seemed like Indrid kind of knew what was going on, kind of like the Watcher, but not exactly. But anyways, let's move on to this next story about Indrid Cold. And this one is from dailyyonder.com. Things always seem mysterious on chilly fall nights in the country. Okay. For Woodrow Derenberger, his mysterious encounter with an almost human grinning man on the backwoods of West Virginia one November night would affect him and his family for almost a quarter of a century. Good Lord. In 1966, Woodrow Derenberger was a sewing machine salesman living in Mineral Wells, West Virginia. One November night that year, Derenberger said he was returning from a business trip to Marietta. One November night that year, Derenberger said he was returning from a business trip to Marietta, Ohio, when he had to stop to adjust a sewing machine in the back of his truck. Once he got back on the road, he noticed lights ahead of him. Thinking the lights were police officers, he stopped, only to discover that the lights didn't belong to a car, but to what he said was an aircraft that looked like a kerosene lamp chimney. Derenberger said a man stepped out and approached his truck. He looked perfectly natural and normal as any human being, Derenberger told Ronald Maines during an interview on WTAP-TV in Parkersburg, West Virginia, the day after the encounter. His face looked like he had a good tan, a deep suntan. He was not too dark, but it was just like he had been out in the sun a lot and had a good tan. His hair was combed straight back, and it was dark brown, and he seemed to have a good, thick head of hair. His eyebrows, his face, his features were very normal. I don't believe that he looked any different from any other man that you would meet on the street. But he wasn't normal, Derenberger said. He had a large grin and kept his arms folded with his hands under his armpits. And though he spoke to Derenberger, his smile never moved. He spoke, Derenberger said, telepathically. Could you imagine talking to somebody and they're just smiling and like you just hear the voice in your head and what was that? Anyways, right hand side of my truck, and I done what he asked, Derenberger said during the interview. And this man stood there, and he first asked me what I was called, and I know he meant my name, and I told him my name, and he asked me, he said, "Why are you frightened?" He said, "Don't be frightened. We wish you no harm," he said. "We mean you no harm. We wish you only happiness." And I told him my name, and when I told him my name, he said he was called Cold. I don't like how he said we, and it's just one man. It was Derenberger's and the world's introduction to the entity known as Indrid Cold. Naturally, Derenberger reported his encounter to the Parkersburg police. By the next day, the media frenzy surrounding the story took off. Derenberger agreed to be interviewed on live television on WTAP. Taking part in the interview were members of the state police, representatives of the Wood County Airport, the Parkersburg Police, and a representative from the Wright-Patterson Air Force Base in Dayton, Ohio. For 30 minutes, the men peppered Derenberger with questions about the strange encounter. After the interview aired, however, others came forward with claims that they had also seen a figure matching Derenberger's description of Indrid Cold. I'm getting so creeped out because there's mirrors in this room, and I'm just like thinking of that scene in The Mothman, tripping myself out. One man reported that a man matching Indrid Cold's description tried to flag him down, but he was too afraid to stop. I don't blame you, man. I would have ran over him by accident. No, let me not say that. Or he'd pop up something. And several witnesses reported they had seen Derenberger stopped on the road talking to a man on the same road. For the next 3 weeks, newspapers in the area ran stories about Derenberger's claims and the claims of others. News coverage eventually died down, but Cold's visitations continued. Derenberger reported he was visited often by the strange, grinning man over the course of the next month. Eventually, Derenberger's family said they too had seen Cold and other strange things. Naturally, the media attention given to the story brought locals to Derenberger's house, hoping to get a glimpse of Cold. The attention, as well as the scorn and ridicule he was suffering from, led Derenberger to seek medical attention. His physician gave him a clean bill of health and found no evidence of chemical imbalance of disruption. In other words, they found that he didn't have any mental issues. Although he wrote a book about his visits, nothing good came from Derenberger's recounting his encounter. Anyways, in fact, it didn't just negatively affect him, but it affected his family and his friends as well. The family received years of harassing phone calls and blamed lost jobs and friends on Derenberger's tales of Indrid Cold. Derenberger suffered from painful headaches and depression, and eventually his wife divorced him. Derenberger moved away from the area to escape his notoriety. After years of living somewhere else, however, Derenberger moved back to Mineral Wells area before his death in 1990 at the age of 74, 23 years after Indrid Cold supposedly pulled him over on the highway. While he never recanted his statement, he never spoke of them again. Ugh. Since then, Derenberger's account has lingered, propelling Indrid Cold into the realm of the rural myths and legends, as well as into tales of the creepy and unknown. Because he is creepy and unknown. After Derenberger spoke to John Keel, the author of the Mothman Prophecies, the legend of Indrid Cold was linked to Mothman, even so far as appearing in the 2002 Mothman Prophecies movies. As I just said. It's difficult to tell what really happened, said Brian Dunning, author of Skeptoid magazine, but it's clear that Derenberger gained nothing from coming forward. Who knows what actually happened to Derenberger on that strange night, Dunning said. Derenberger's story did little for him. His obsession would cost him his job and his wife, and according to Keel, who visited him a year later, they found him hiding behind drawn curtains from what he believed were hundreds of UFO believers and skeptics. Saying that Indrid Cold and his friends frequently visited the farm, often arriving by automobile for long, friendly chats. He had almost certainly become delusional. Cold November nights on lonely rural roads will always be a good setting for mysterious encounters, Dunning said. Rural areas are always the best place for a creepy tale, he said. It's dark, there are trees and murky creeks, and you are far from the comforting protection of lights and people. So that's where I am right now. In the country. But anyways, super creepy story. There's been I feel like there was more stories about Indrid Cold online too. Like he showed up in it's a really good series to listen to. I think it's called, it's about Hellier, Kentucky. I found it while I was listening to Mysterious Universe. Super cool podcast. It's free. They're on YouTube and they also have an app. Check them out. But they had a segment that they did about it was a lot of stuff, but they did a segment on the guys who investigated Hellier, Kentucky, and they ran across all kinds of weird things that kind of pertain to Indrid Cold, and I want to say one of his offspring, like his son or something. I'm not exactly sure what happened, but they were contacting him and he passed away. I don't know how old Indrid Cold was supposed to be or what he was supposed to be, but they always describe him as being very strange. But there's other stories of this too, where people will run into people that don't seem to be with it. Like they'll be talking strange, like they'll ask, but the words aren't coming together. Like where he asks him, "What are you called?" instead of asking like, "What's your name?" Like he's talking to you, be like, "What's your name?" But he's like, "What are you called?" Somebody asked me that, I'd be like, "What do you mean? What am I called? Pearl? Monica? I don't know. Blue Fox?" It's just a weird way to ask that question. I don't know, he seemed like he's out of place. But anyways, so my friends, that is all that I have on this episode of Campfire Spooky Stories. I hope to join you guys on the next Campfire Tales, and we'll go over some more creepy stories. Thanks for hanging out with me.
Push P. Yeah. Push P. Turn me up.
Oh, I should have
Turn
said.
me up, please. Pointers in the paddock, get my piece. I push a P. Cop new hammers for my P. We don't want no peace. Got a spot across the spot.
Are you awake
Just for
too?
peace. Drop the data, now we plot. Decided peace. She not a lesbian for peace. She turned lesbian. Push a P. I push